The sun rose slow over the wide valley, spilling its pale gold across the sleeping land as though brushing color onto an old, nearly forgotten painting. Dust lifted in soft spirals from the empty road, moving the way memories drift through a tired heart. And the air carried that quiet, early morning chill that made even the bravest men breathe a little deeper. James rode through it with the calm patience of a man who had survived too many winters and learned the value of silence. His horse's hooves beat steady against the ground, a rhythm as familiar to him as his own heartbeat. At 34, he had the look of a man molded by the wild, broad-shouldered, sun-marked, eyes steady, but carrying the storm of someone who had lived most of his life with no one to share it with. And yet, beneath all that grit, beneath the tan lines and the hard jaw, was a softness he kept hidden like a secret. He saw her before she saw him. Anna stood outside her small cabin, shaking out a blanket the wind kept trying to steal from her hands. The morning light wove through her brown hair, catching on its loose strands like fireflies trapped emotion, and her slender shoulders curved inward the way someone curves in when holding something fragile inside their chest. She was 24, young by the town's measure, yet she carried herself with the gravity of someone who had been told, too many times, by too many mouths, that her time had somehow already passed. She whispered something to herself, barely a sound, carried away by the wind, but he saw the shape of the words on her lips. "I am too old to marry." The phrase did something to him. It unsettled him the way a sudden storm unsettles the prairie sky. For months he had watched her from a distance, watched how she moved with quiet dignity even when people underestimated her worth, watched how she helped the elderly widow, Mrs. Whitlock, carry groceries, how she taught little Eli, the stable boy, to read by candlelight, how she stayed soft despite a world that had done its best to harden her. And he wondered how someone who shone so gently could ever believe she was too late for anything. He guided his horse closer, pretending it was coincidence, but even the trees might have laughed at the idea. He slowed beside her fence, tipping his hat with a quiet respect he always gave her, and she startled a little before offering him that small, careful smile she reserved only for the people she trusted not to hurt her. The fence behind her leaned dangerously to one side, an old wound reopened by last night's restless wind. James nodded toward it, his voice deep but gentle. "Morning, Anna. Looks like the wind didn't treat your fence kindly. Want a hand mending it?" Her gaze flickered downward, the blanket held tight against her chest. She hesitated the way someone hesitates when the world has taught them that accepting kindness often comes with unexpected costs. "You don't have to trouble yourself, James. I can manage." "I don't mind a bit of trouble," he murmured, already dismounting before she could object. And the truth was he didn't. Helping her felt like the most natural thing he'd ever done. She watched him with wary eyes, the kind that had learned to measure every man who came too close. Rumors had once swirled about a courting gone wrong, a suitor who called her plain, too quiet, too old, as though a woman's worth was determined by how loudly she laughed or how quickly she agreed to be owned. Anna had retreated after that, not out of weakness, but from a desire to protect the one thing she still owned completely, her heart. James began working on the fence, his hand steady, movements sure, and she found herself drawn to watching him in a way she couldn't quite explain. There was something comforting about the deliberate slowness of his movements, something calming in how he didn't try to fill the air with needless words. Men in town often talked to impress, but James talked only when it mattered, and she respected that more than she could ever admit. She approached with a bucket of nails, her hand brushing his glove for the briefest moment. The touch sent a jolt through them both, unexpected, soft, like the moment lightning kisses the earth before anybody sees it. She pulled her hand back too quickly, cheeks warming, and pretended to inspect a section of the fence. He noticed. He noticed everything about her. The way her breath hitched when she was nervous. The way she bit the inside of her cheek when thinking too hard. The way she never let her pain show, even when it threatened to spill from her eyes. "You shouldn't do everything alone," he said quietly while driving a nail through the wood. "Even the strongest branches need support." She stared at him then, truly stared, as though trying to understand what made a man like him speak words so gentle. Her voice came out small. "Some things in life are meant to be endured alone. Is that what you believe, Anna? It's what life taught me. He wanted to argue. He wanted to shake every lie someone had planted in her heart. But he didn't. Not yet. He kept working, letting silence speak for him, letting the wind whisper around them as if urging them closer. As she lifted a loose board, a sharp edge cut across her palm. She gasped softly, jerking her hand back. Blood welled bright against her skin. James reacted instantly, his hand closing around hers before she could hide the injury. The way he held her, gently, firmly, like holding something he didn't want to lose, made her heart stutter. "You're hurt." "It's nothing," she whispered, trying to pull away. He didn't let her. "You shouldn't bleed alone either." Her breath trembled, and she looked away from him, her voice cracking like thin ice beneath a boot. "I told you, James. I'm too old to marry. Too late for these things. Too late for thoughts like this." His chest tightened at her words. Too old? Too late? The idea felt like a blade sliding across his ribs. He stepped closer, the morning air tightening between them. "Anna, you're 24. Age doesn't matter when people already made up their mind about you." "Then they're fools," he said softly, fiercely. "You are not too late for anything, least of all love." She froze. The world suddenly felt too quiet, as though it had paused to listen. Her eyes lifted to his, shimmering with tears she refused to let fall, and something inside him cracked open. Something he had kept sealed since boyhood, since loneliness became his only steady companion. He lifted a hand to her jaw, slow enough for her to step away if she wished, but she didn't. His thumb brushed her cheek, the touch so delicate it felt like a prayer. "Anna," he whispered, leaning in as if drawn by a force older than the dust and the mountains. "You speak as though your heart has expired, but to me, it is the youngest thing I've ever known." Before she could look away, before doubt could build its walls again, he lowered his lips to hers. The kiss was soft, so soft it felt like the beginning of something rather than the peak of it, but it carried more truth than any words he had ever spoken. She inhaled sharply, the weight of years melting for one suspended heartbeat. When he pulled back, her tears finally slipped free. He rested his forehead against hers, voice trembling with the confession he had held for far too long. "If you believe you are too old to marry, then let me be young enough for the both of us. Let me carry the years, Anna. Let me carry the doubts. Let me carry whatever burdens told you you were unworthy. Because I see you. I see everything you've survived. I see the strength you call ordinary. I see the softness you hide like treasure. And I want you not someday, not in another lifetime, but now." Her breath shuddered, her fingers curling into his shirt as though holding on for balance. "James, why would you choose someone like me?" "Because," he said, lifting her face again, "you are the only person I've ever looked at and seen a future instead of a fence line." A sob escaped her. She pressed her face into his chest, letting herself be held, letting herself be seen, letting herself feel, for the first time, like she wasn't too late for anything. And in that quiet valley, with the fence half mended and the morning sun spilling over them like a benediction, Anna realized that love didn't arrive early or late. It arrived exactly when a heart was ready to bear it. James held her, and the world finally felt right. And for the first time in years, she whispered not to the wind, but to herself, to him, to fate itself, "I am not too late."